Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Arts and Conversation podcast. I'm your host, Makai Eastman, and I have my co-host, Jadon Bell.
Hello.
So today we have a very special guest with us from the Actors Vow podcast, Denise Borraz Trepat. Very much welcome to you, and I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me here.
So we had a little bit of technical difficulties last time, and I asked you about where the name of your podcast came from. Can you please explain that again?
Yeah, the name of the podcast is the title of a poem by Alia Kazan. And that is a poem that I read every morning. It's like a morning affirmation to me. And it's about what being an actor is, being vulnerable, being raw, being true to yourself, being true to the audience, and not having any walls in between you and the world. And that's what I stand for as an artist, and that's what I thought was the best name for my podcast.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I really like that.
Thank you.
I was listening to a couple of your episodes that you had up, and it's almost like a little acting class on the go. And it's like theory for it. And that's really useful because there seems to be a disconnect sometimes of what people think acting is. Like a lot of people think it's just a talent that you're born with. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I believe you definitely have to have some seeds to grow, but it's necessary to have sufficient watering for that. And just listening to you, it was like one of those theater history courses that translates into acting for theater majors or something like that. So I feel like I was back in school, which I think is very valuable, and I appreciate that you're doing that. So did you decide that, just waking up one day, you decided that, well, I want to kind of spread what I've learned to other people, or how did this all come about? Because it's very useful.
Yeah, well, this has been a project that has been in my mind for many years. It basically came to be like this because I believe that acting, as any craft, it should be studied, right? That's what you were saying. You can have talent, but you don't see painters or dancers wake up one day and say, I'm a dancer, I'm just going to dance. They train for hours and they learn technique and they study their craft. And I think acting is the only art where we don't see that much. We see people that just go into the screen, film actors, film directors, and they just don't study it. They just do it. And I just think that's very wrong, and it's something that I wanted to create awareness of. And I went to school for acting, and I've been acting since I was a child, and this is something very close to me that I wanted to be able to share with others.
That's great.
I 100% agree with that, man. A lot of people don't realize that there are a lot of fundamentals that go into acting, both film and stage. You have to know how to position yourself. You have to know how to stand. You have to know where to move and when to move and all of that stuff. So a lot of people just think you just kind of go up there and you just kind of read words off the script. And it's like, if you're talented, then they sound good. And if you're not, then they sound bad. And that's all it is. But breath of fresh air to hear somebody else who understands the importance of learning all of the stuff around theater.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we are seeing in the media nowadays that acting is becoming just about the looks. And that really has been bothering me for so long. I mean, if you come from a theater background, you don't see that much. But in film and TV nowadays, most actors come from no background. And I just think that you need to get a training. And the podcast is not going to be all, theater history and training, but a big part of it is. Absolutely.
Right. So do you focus more in theater or film?
Theater. Yeah, I grew up being a child actor. I started acting when I was 8, and I've done theater since I was 8 to 20 years old, and I recently got into film and TV. So theater is my home. Theater is my first love.
I completely understand that. We have the unique perspective, I would say all of us, in this little rectangle right here, because at least I'm gonna speak for myself, and when I say that in terms of acting wasn't enough for me, and it never really scratched the itch that I needed to get rid of, because I'd been acting since I was 12. Like that's when I decided, okay, theater is what I wanted to do. Yeah, but I was in like little school plays and things like that. And I would say about the time of my senior year of high school is when I had this spark of inspiration that, okay, maybe this isn't it. Yeah, maybe I should do something else. But then we had our student directed one acts at the end of high school, and that was what they did for the seniors, kind of showcase what we learned and apply that. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is interesting. So I then found out that I had a knack for directing and writing and overall storytelling as a theater maker. And I use my acting background, and even when I was in college, it was a very acting heavy program. And was able to use that and transfer those skills to be able to be the actor's director, which I think is very important because
Super important.
and even now I was able to work on my technical skills and become the technician's director when I needed it, because obviously there's nothing worse than a useless director. There isn't.
Yeah.
And that comes from both sides of the aisle, whether the technical side or the performance side. And I try to come at it holistically to say, okay, how can I communicate what's in here and make it better understood by the people out there, so that all of our jobs can be easier, we can just get things done and continue to move on efficiently. Um, with that said, I think it's very important as artists in general, but specifically actors, that you have more drive than to always be given the opportunity to do what you need to do. Like, you need to search it out yourself and take those opportunities as well, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's a very um, inspiring thing to keep in mind, especially for someone like you who is creating a new medium of podcasting for yourself with your talents, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast. When I graduated from college, I moved from New York City to LA to
Yeah,
pursue TV and film.
good move.
And one of the biggest things was that they didn't teach me in college that you had to create your own stuff. I feel like I spent 4 years just learning how to act once you had the job and learning how to audition.
Yeah,
But that's only 80% of your life. I mean, you're all the time auditioning, and how many times do you get to act? And even when you get to act, how many times is it something that is something you really want to do and not a commercial, or just something you have to do at the beginning because you have to do different things?
exactly.
So I wish they taught us that as artists, we have to create our own stuff. Write a short, write a play, create a podcast, whatever it needs to be done so you can feel accomplished in a way. It got to a point where I was feeling like I wasn't doing enough, like I wasn't sharing my art enough. You know, and that as an artist, it's so sad. We need to be creating all the time, and that's what fulfills our souls and our hearts.
Yeah. I personally feel that as an artist, you should have something that you want to say. And that's where creating your own stuff gets very important. Because
Big
if you
deal.
spend all of your time, if you spend all of your time doing somebody else's work, doing this show that somebody else wrote, this show that somebody else wrote, then, or this commercial here, or this TV show here, then eventually you're going to get muddled into just being almost like a blank canvas, but in the worst way possible. It's like, you're not standing for anything. You don't have anything that you yourself want to put out there. You're just regurgitating all of this extra information. So, yeah, I think creating your stuff is very important. It'll open up opportunities for people who quite possibly couldn't have gotten it otherwise. You can bring your own cool perspective to the table. It opens the world to acting.
Yes.
And I think it's very important as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's almost like, I don't know, these experiences that also come with your acting can even just enhance it. You can't really. It's hard to feign emotion, as you well know. You got to play an action.
Yeah.
So I think in order to effectively play those actions, you need other experiences rather than This is all that I've done with my life, and I can't really express any other feeling or any other thoughts other than the one track mind that I've been a part of. I think it's very detrimental. And I noticed that in my personal life, all the better actors I know all have something else to do. Like it's or something else that they love, not necessarily what they have to do, but and it shows. Jadon was in the first play that I wrote, Fool's Gold, and not just because we've been friends for X amount of years, but he's one of the better actors that I know. So
Right.
Yeah.
out of 10 times, if there's a role for him that he can do, I'm gonna say, hey, Jadon, come on over. How many times have I've asked you to come from Orlando to Tampa to be in a reading or something, or
Uh, enough times, man.
but
Yeah,
Nah,
I
man, I
agree. I
love it.
mean,
I'd do it all again in a heartbeat.
yeah,
yeah, acting is not passive. And I think people
No.
see it as, well, you get a script and you learn it and you just go do it. But it's what you're saying. The best actors I know love life. They're passionate in general. They love to read, they love to travel, they love to learn. And as an actor, you need to know, because you are your own instrument. And if you're not nourishing yourself, how are you going to act? How are you going to connect with your audience? Or to your character, the complexity of the characters. You have to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I personally, I find myself acting less and less almost, because it's like, I'll see an audition for this show and it's like, well, I don't really know what the show's trying to say. But then when I do act, I at least try to make it count. I don't want to be a guy up here hyping up his own stuff or nothing. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like those shows where I see a clear message and I see a clear goal and I see a clear like slogan that they are trying to say and something that they're fighting for, it just kind of lights a fire in me almost. And it takes me from like yeah, maybe I'll audition for this show, maybe I'll audition for this show, to like, no, I need to audition for this and I need to do as best as I possibly can. Like it's totally different. And Makai shows, they've all got something to say. That makes it so easy. Like it's not just the fact that, we're best friends and we've known each other for almost a decade now. Man, we're old. But it's other stuff. Like he has a theme that he wants to say. He has a message that he's trying to get across. Fool's Gold started and it was like a show just about his just trauma and horrible experiences and stuff. We turned it into something that was great. And I feel like it wouldn't have been that if it weren't for like me and him and that special little, you know, whatever the word is, tornado of emotions and stuff. Yeah, synergy. That's the word.
Yeah.
Look at you with the words.
Well, I think it ends up being about why you do it. Like if you're into acting for the money, for the fame, for whatever, it's not going to work. But of course, we actors, most of us, are in it for the art. We're in it for the community, to be together, to share something, to share stories, those stories that are not heard, that need to be heard. And that's what you're saying. That's that passion that we have. We don't have the passion for things that are not realistic, things that are not.
Right.
Yeah.
exactly. Do you do any writing at all?
I am doing my own writing now. Yes, I have been writing a short for a while, but it's one of those things that I've never done before. So it's taking forever. And I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but I think that as artists, sometimes your work is never ready. You just keep writing and writing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not ready. Maybe next month. And yeah.
I will tell you. So I've been writing this play. Like usually, this is the first time this has happened. But usually, if I get an idea for a play, it all kind of comes at once. Like I think the last full script I wrote, Snowball, that Janelle was in. Surprise, surprise. That took me about 50 hours. to write.
Yeah, it was like 3 days. It was amazing. Like he had sent me the Google Doc as he was writing it. I was reading it as it was being written. It was written in like a weekend. Crazy.
That's amazing.
I can do that. That's usually what
Yeah.
happens. It just I get that spark and it just goes. However,
2.5 hour play.
however, this little problem child of mine, it's called Glorietta, and I got this idea from watching Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight,
Mhm.
and I was thinking about it because I was like, well, how many Western plays are there? Right? How many plays that are set like a spaghetti Western? None. And I always joke about, I mean, you can kind of count Of Mice and Men if you really want to stretch it, but how many are like this? And it's pretty, it's a wonderful genre. Like it's a lot of, it touches all the points of the heroes versus the villains, and it's that feel good story type of thing. And I was like, what would be cool is if I did it in a non-linear format, and if I just had the same 3-day period and just kind of jump back and forth as to how everything is going to unravel for the audience, because it starts off in the middle of everything. There's a big shootout that happens, and I can't wait to actually finish it so I can direct it. It's going to be very cool. I see it in my head. But it starts off with the shootout, and the end of that scene is kind of left with, okay, well, who did this and how did this happen? Like who tipped there's a roving gang that I created called the Coyotes. Like who tipped them off as to when we'd be vulnerable and why? And the thing is, I don't know. I know almost. I just figured out a couple of days ago how it was going to end. So I finished Act 1 about a week ago. And I'm like, okay, I am nowhere near done. And I've been writing this play. I first started the first page December 2018.
Yeah.
Wow.
Years
Because
now.
while we were rehearsing Snowball, and I had nothing else to do during the days because that was my winter break from school, I was like, okay, well, I can just work on something else. And it was a lot of fun. And it is a lot of fun when I get back to it. But the problem is that I just want to make it good. And I'm not looking for perfection because I'll never achieve perfection. But it's difficult to, and this is a genre and a style that I've never attempted before. And I'm watching a lot of the old, Clint Eastwood movies and all those, the 50s and 60s, the heyday of the spaghetti western. And I'm getting these ideas. I just watched The Ballad of Buster Scruggs for the third time on Netflix by the Coen brothers. That's a lot of fun. And I was like, well, okay, this is hard to do without the magic of cameras and editing.
Yeah.
So
That's probably why it hasn't been done.
Yeah. That's why there aren't many of them.
it's going to take a while, I'm sure, but I have a while because obviously we're in the pandemic, so I can't.
It's a great idea. I love it.
We all got nothing but time.
Yeah.
So it'll get there eventually, and I know my characters now, which it took a lot longer than I would have liked, but I'd rather it be good and take a long time than lackluster and rushed.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I will take it very personally if people hate it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I bring it up in conversations all the time where people will ask me, oh, but what about this person here, or what about this person? What if you were making this much money here? I think somebody asked me one time. They said, what if I was in a play as the leading role with no understudy, and the day afterwards, well, not the day afterwards, the day before opening night, like Steven Spielberg came up to me and offered me a role and was like, well, you got to leave now. And I had to tell him, I was like, look, I got too much integrity as an artist to sit here and just leave a production that I had been working on for so long. Also, like, if I'm on his radar, I'd be on others. But, like, I bring that example up to be like, an artist's integrity is important. you don't want to put out a crap product. Like, if you take what you do seriously, the last thing that you should want to do is put something out where everybody's like, oh yeah, I didn't like that. Oh, that could have had more time put into it. You know, that would be a disrespect to me and what I'm working on and all of the people
I
that
would
I've
be
worked with.
devastated.
Yeah, but at the same time,
Exactly.
you're always gonna have someone who doesn't like your work,
That's
and you
true.
just gotta
Oh,
learn
for
to live
sure.
with that.
And
And
that's
But
also,
you
like,
got, yeah,
where does it end? You know, because you want to make it better and you want to make it good. Like, sometimes it's hard to see it for yourself. I've
yeah,
seen things that to myself weren't that good, and with a little bit of perspective after the years, I was like, wait, I should have released that. That was actually good.
right.
Because I think as artists in that moment, we just are so focused on it being great.
Yeah, I totally agree
yeah,
with you. And what I meant by what I was saying that is that that's what drives me to do the best that I can. Because yeah,
right.
ultimately, you're absolutely right. There are always going to be people who don't like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
I'd rather them not like it because of their personal opinion, like being subjective rather than objective.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
there are objectively bad things out there.
Yeah.
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 But
Not everybody vibes with everything. And
Mhm.
that's something very important to
Of
understand. It's
course.
like, you got to be able to separate the people who are just like, look, I get what you did, but I'm just not personally into it, versus the people who are just like, wow, that was bad, and I'm not going to offer you any criticism whatsoever. You know what I
it
mean?
was
And even
wonderful.
if they think that if you like it, you know, it's going to happen. I think that as
Yeah,
artists, we have that problem always that what are they going to think, you know? But in the end, you just gotta put out your work that you enjoy, and it's going to inspire other people for sure. It will connect with other people, just the right
100% agree.
people. Yeah.
And that's an important thing that you mentioned because when I made the decision to mostly transition away from acting was when that I realized auditioning rarely worked out for me. And it's not that I'm not going to say I was a bad actor. It was just a matter of
You're not.
I wasn't
I
what a
see you
lot of
act.
I bet
people
you're not.
I wasn't what a lot of people were looking for. And
Yeah.
according to according to the play or musical. And I was thinking about it and I was like, okay, I feel bad, but do I care enough to keep doing this? Like, do I have the mindset of, well, that's just one person's opinion. I'm gonna keep putting myself out there. And I had to be honest with myself and said, no, I don't, not for this. However, when it comes to my playwriting and when it comes to my directing, I have that spark of, okay, this is the best we've done. This is the best we can do. This is all we can do. And we got our chance to make this work. And if not, at least we tried. That's when I knew, okay, this is what I got to do. I don't feel that way about acting. We had our auditions class in college, and let me tell you, that ate me up every week. um, I mean, our professor would be overly critical because that was the whole point of the class. Is he would look at us like he didn't know us. This is the first time we ever walked into the room, and it was a professional audition, and he eviscerated every single one of us. And um, even there was even a section where we had to be graded on our audition clothes. We had to stand in the chorus line style, and he would just go up and down, rate our outfits, and point out things that he didn't like. And I remember, which I didn't have a car at this time, so I would always have to wear my clothes for my 9 a.m. class and walk across town. It was a 45-minute, half an hour walk, and this class was at 2 p.m. So I had my 9 a.m. and then I had to do the day throughout, blah, blah, blah. And of course, being in Florida, it's hot and sunny. So I'll be a little sweaty sometimes, right? Understandable, as
Yeah,
people
yeah.
do perspire. And
No,
I
we
got
get it.
points off every now and then for visible sweat. And I was like, I can't help this. But to his credit, that's what some directors feel like is enough to say, all right, next. So I got to that point.
Absolutely.
And I was like,
Absolutely. Auditions are crazy. And sometimes directors will not want you because something as silly as you look like their ex. Like, the reasons why you might not get cast are crazy.
Yeah.
It might be, yeah, sweat, your eye color, your hair, your height. Sometimes it's comparing you to the other person that has already been cast, and you have to look good next to the other actor. But I love what you're saying, and as an actor you need that self-awareness to be like, okay, can I take this? And if you can take it, maybe you should move into something else,
exactly.
writing, whatever it is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of, and I just want to get your perspective on this since you've been in this field for so long, for your life. Auditioning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever have a particular audition experience that kind of pushed you to a new level of awakening as a performer?
Many, I guess, more than awakening as a performer, awakening in personal levels.
Okay.
I think, well, one of the hardest thing I had to do was, I was born in Spain. I was born and raised in Spain, and English was not my second language. It's actually my fourth language. So I learned it growing up as a teenager. And when I decided that I wanted to go to New York and study acting, I had to learn English, and not just that, I had to learn how to act in English and how to, just be able to talk in English in a regular conversation. So that whole 2 weeks that I went to New York for auditioning for college and academies and all these acting schools, that was the hardest. I remember my first audition in English, and I remember the auditioning people talking, and I had no idea what they were saying. I had no idea what was going on. I just went there, I said my monologue in English the way I learned it, and I left. But yeah, that taught me a lot for sure.
Right. So, when have you noticed any particular difference in the styles of acting between Spain and America?
Yes, I think the reason why I came here is because I think here the training is better, and they're more conscious of the need of an actor to train. In Spain, it's even worse than here. Like, all the acting scene there's no training basically, and if there is, it's not in depth like here in the US. I mean, if we compare the one from the US to the UK, probably the UK is even better, right? But yes, but compared to Spain, the US is amazing training actors.
That's interesting.
For sure. Yeah.
Never would have considered that. But then again, I mean, I love my telenovelas, but I see what you mean.
Yeah, I think in Spain it's more what we were saying, more about the dialogue, more about the looks, more about the superficial stuff. But I don't see actors actually being trained in depth on their craft.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And then I guess transitioning out of that, why the podcast format for you?
It's starting with a podcast, but my idea is to make it something bigger. The podcast is many reasons. First of all, it's a big challenge for me. Even coming here, and then I've been here in the US 6 years, but during this whole time, I've always had this thing, in acting class, the teacher's telling me you have to get rid of your accent, or people telling me you need to work on your speech just because, I'm foreign. So talking has always been a big impediment for me in a way. And I decided to challenge myself because I love talking about acting and the things I love. And I think as an artist, you have to be able to get out of your comfort zone. And I think that was the last step, the last thing that was stopping me from getting to where I wanted to be as an artist. Be able to just talk and be. So that's why I decided to start with a podcast. And I wanted to create a community of actors, especially here in LA. I think it's not that much. In New York, we have theater. I don't know how it's in Florida, but I feel like in New York, the community is like a family almost. Here in LA, everything is so far away. I feel like there's so much individualism and people don't really connect. And if they connect, it's because they want something from you. So I
Right.
wanted that opportunity to find artists like me. And I haven't been able to find it that much here where I am, and be able to connect artists from LA to New York to Florida to everywhere in the US that we believe the same things, and be able to do something all together and support each other, and not just me talking on the podcast, have other artists, because I think we all have things that we can teach each other and support each other with.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Absolutely.
So, tangentially, how many languages do you speak?
4.
I was wondering,
4.
what are the other
So,
what are the other
Spanish,
two?
English.
So yeah, I grew up in Catalonia, which is a region of Spain that the first language is Catalan. It's actually not Spanish.
Okay.
So that's my first language, Catalan, and then we're bilingual in Spanish too. And then my family is a part of it is from France. So I grew up speaking French too.
French
And then
My
English
goodness.
happened. Yeah.
See,
That's ridiculous.
next time somebody tells you to get rid of your accent, go ahead and just bring out your resume. Look at my special skills. How many languages do you
Right. And
Thank
the
you.
crazy
Yeah.
the crazy thing is, I've known people who have been in America, moved from like Puerto Rico or such, and they've been in America twice as long as you have, and you still speak better English than they do. Like,
Thank you.
your English isn't bad at all. Like, you're talking
Yeah,
about an
but
accent.
I know
I'm
where they're
barely
coming
using it.
from, you know, like you also want to be able to have a general American to certain kind of roles. It kind of limits you to have an accent.
We do not have enough time for me to get into that. But let me just wrap that up to say,
Yeah, we could have a whole other podcast about just that.
and keep owning you.
Thank
And
you.
all I can say is keep making the art that you need to make, and don't sell yourself short for anybody,
Absolutely, I
especially
agree.
people who are way less qualified than you.
Agreed.
But
Thank you so much.
you're very welcome. And unfortunately, Zoom is getting to that point where it's being Zoom and it's going to kick us out in a few minutes. But I wanted to once again thank Jadon for taking the time out to speak with us. And it was a very enlightening conversation. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. This was
So much
amazing.
fun.
You guys are great, and I had so
You
much
too.
fun.
Of course. Thank you so much.